A North Korean submarine is running out of power. At just 12% battery, it's forced to surface. And the Americans are already listening. That single moment didn't just expose the sub, it triggered a chain of events that ended with fire in the sky and explosions beneath the sea. This wasn't an exercise anymore. It was a test of who survives when 20th century hardware collides with 21st century networks. And the ending is something no one in Pyongyang could have predicted. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. It began the moment the submarine could no longer hide. Under the waves, engines had been silenced, crew whispers kept low, and every movement controlled to extend the fragile life of the batteries. But the Sango II, a 50-meter diesel-electric relic, was never designed for weeks of stealth. Its endurance underwater barely stretched 2 days before the oxygen ran low and the batteries drained to a critical threshold. At just under 48 hours submerged, the commander faced the same decision as every captain before him. Risk surfacing or risk suffocating? He chose to rise quietly under the cover of night. What he did not realize was that breaking the surface meant more than recharging. It meant announcing his position to the very adversary he hoped to stalk. The plan seemed simple. By surfacing at midnight and running on minimal deck lights, the Korean crew believed they could slip unnoticed into the darkness, recharge their batteries, and sink back beneath the waves before daybreak. They trusted the ocean's scope would keep them hidden. Men checked dials, sailors listened for suspicious sounds, and the commander kept a nervous eye on the horizon where no ships appeared. To them, silence meant safety. To the adversary, silence meant confirmation. For in those very waters, hydrophones linked to an underwater sensor grid had already picked up the telltale hum of the submarine's propulsion system, a sound that reverberated at roughly 120 decibels. To human ears, it was faint. To computer systems feeding information directly into U.S. command networks, it was as clear as a loudspeaker. The mismatch played out instantly. The Sango II's crew thought they were gliding unseen. In reality, as soon as the sub surfaced, radars from maritime patrol aircraft framed its outline. Satellite feeds clocked the disturbance in the water, and seabed hydrophones marked its acoustic fingerprint. One tired vessel became a multicolored symbol, glowing across American screens from Yokosuka to Hawaii. The submarine entered a grid of tracking algorithms that required no human guesswork, no hesitation, and no loss of vigilance. With every sensor confirming every other, the sub's fragile cloak dissolved into illumination. That was the danger the commander could not see. A weak vibration in the water becomes a trigger, passed across systems designed to link sea, air, and space into one seamless chain. Once that chain begins, the location of the submarine is no longer just noted. It is cataloged, distributed, and held in memory. Surface ships alter routes, anti-submarine aircraft prepare sonobuoys and torpedoes, and command centers queue responses. The submarine has become not an attacker, but a data point within a massive network. From the North Korean perspective, their boat was hunting and evading. From the U.S. perspective, the boat was owned. By surfacing, the captain had unknowingly surrendered initiative, placing himself into the logic of a foreign system that now tracked his every move. The submarine, still ignorant of its exposure, continued operations. In Pyongyang, the news of detection had not filtered upward, and the leadership opted to reinforce posturing at sea with intimidation from the air. Crews were ordered to scramble attack helicopters as if raw aggression could balance the scale. The problem was the die had already been cast. The critical mistake was believing that the ocean's immensity would conceal them. Instead, surfacing revealed them and handed the initiative away. The commander thought he was regaining freedom of maneuver, but in truth, he ignited the opening move in a sequence he could never control. When a Sango II rose to breathe, it unknowingly offered the first step toward defeat. And while its position burned bright on distant monitors, the confrontation above the waves was already taking shape, where helicopters would soon engage in a clash no one expected. A lone helicopter skimmed across the waves, its shape hulking and unmistakable. North Korea had chosen to send a Mi-24 Hind into the path of a patrolling American Apache. It was not chosen because it was the best tool for the mission. It was chosen because of the message it sent. The Hind had been the Soviet Union's armored cavalry in the sky, Fast when it was introduced, able to carry both troops and weapons, feared by infantry. Decades later, its reputation carried weight in propaganda reels, but the actual machine carried outdated sensors, aging avionics, and missiles that were short-range by modern standards. Still, the North Korean leadership believed that charging one into the area would give the appearance of boldness, that its heavy gunfire and silhouette could be enough to scare an American helicopter away. To them, intimidation was leverage. Across the way, the Apache stood ready but constrained. In terms of technology, the AH-64 sat on another tier, a cockpit packed with thermal imaging cameras, helmet displays, targeting computers, and controls that linked seamlessly to missiles and rockets. Its fuselage was shielded by titanium plating, designed to survive hits that would rip through other aircraft. But its greatest advantage was not its weapons or armor, but the rules it operated under. Flying in international airspace near tense waters, the Apache crew had orders that emphasized restraint. They were not to strike first. Their role was presence, to remind anyone watching that American systems held the upper hand without firing a shot. Then came the escalation. The hind pilot dropped altitude rapidly, coming in low, sending bursts of 23mm cannon fire into empty waters near the Apache's line of sight. It was not an attempt to kill, but to menace, paired with flares shot into the night as if to underline defiance. Radio warnings followed, demanding the Americans withdraw. From the North Korean viewpoint, this was a show of dominance. To the Apache crew, however, the math was clear. They were in the right, they had the authority to remain, and backing away under such threats would signal weakness. Each pilot interpreted the other's presence differently. The hind pilot saw his intimidation working,